So standard form, probably the least fun form, takes the most work because we cannot graph from standard form. We have to convert it into slope-intercept form in order to graph. Okay, so first we're going to look at going from slope-intercept to standard form, which is probably the easiest to change. Okay, so they're going to progressively get harder as we go down because there's some exceptions to the rule down here. Okay, so standard form has x and the y on the left side and equal to a constant. So if we're looking at slope-intercept form, the one thing we need to change to put it in standard form is we need to put the x on this side. So we're going to move the x over. So for this first one, we would add 3x to move that over to the left side. So that gives us 3x plus y equals 2. And that one is done. We are in standard form now.
Wait, why would you want it like that though?
That was going to be the next thing I was going to say. Now, you will not necessarily ever take it from slope-intercept form and put it in standard form unless I'm just asking you a question to do that. It gives you no benefit to do that to graph it. But it's good to be able to know how to do that in case you see answer choices, for instance, that are in standard form and you solved it and got slope-intercept form. Be able to go back and forth. Okay, so the next one, same thing. We need to move the x over, and then it's going to have one extra step. So we're going to subtract 4x. So it gives you negative 4x plus y equals negative 5. Okay, here's the extra step. There is a special rule, or actually two special rules. This is the first one with standard form that says the a term, that first term, has to be positive. So if it is negative, all you need to do is change all your signs. We're essentially multiplying the whole equation by negative 1. So that's going to become positive 4x minus y equals positive 5. Okay, now as far as these two rules and holding you accountable on quizzes or tests, that's the only one I'm going to would take off if you didn't do. The next one that involves changing a fraction, I'm actually going to count it as bonus points if you do it correctly. Okay, so if we move down to this one, to move the x over, we're going to add 2/3 x. So now we have 2/3 x plus y equals negative 6. So on that one, the x term's positive, so we don't have to worry about that. The second extra rule, which I said I'm going to count as bonus points, is you can't have a fraction for your a term. So we got to figure out how to get rid of that fraction, and the way you're going to do it is multiply the whole equation by whatever that denominator is. So we're going to multiply the whole equation by 3. The reason you do that, when we multiply that fraction times 3 now, what's 3 times 2? 6. And what's 6 divided by 3? 2. It gets rid of that fraction. So that becomes 2x. And then 3 times y. So now plus 3y. And 3 times negative 6 would be negative 18. So if you have a fraction, if you just multiply by that denominator, multiply everything by it, it will get rid of that fraction. Follow that? If you want to make a little note here, that's going to be, you get bonus points if you do that correctly. And then the fourth one, it's going to have both of those extra rules where we got to get rid of the negative and we got to get rid of the fraction. So to start with, subtract 3/5 x. Move that to the left side. So negative 3/5 x plus y equals 1. Okay, now if you want to do it in 2 steps, you can. You can change all your signs and then get rid of the fraction. You can also do it together at the same time. So we need to multiply this whole equation by what? 5. But to get rid of the negative, just multiply by negative 5. And then you're actually taking care of both steps at once. But if you want to just go through and change the signs and be done, that's all I'm going to make you have to do. So negative 5 times negative 3 would be what? 15, and 15 divided by 5, 3. So that took care of it. Made that not a fraction and made it positive. Then negative 5 times y minus 5y plus u. And then negative 5 times 1 would be negative 5.
So we can do it when you multiply the denominator. Yeah, that. So you put this to the denominator.
And you can just do that in your calculator too. You can go in here and do negative 5 times negative 3 divided by 5. And it'll do it for you. Okay, so we good so far there? So that is taking slope-intercept, putting it into standard. Okay, the next group, we're going to be taking point slope and changing it to standard. So from here, we got a couple steps we got to do. The first one, kind of like when we were putting it in slope-intercept form. First one is you have to distribute. So we're going to distribute that negative 4. So negative 4x, and then negative 4 times negative 3 is plus 12. So I'm going to kind of write out here to decide what the steps were. First one was distribute. Okay, next, and we're going to do this in 2 separate steps. On the next one, I'll show you how if you just want to do it at the same time, you can. If you think of how standard form is, standard form has the x on the left side, so we know we're going to need to move that negative 4x to the left, and it has the constant on the right side, so we're going to have to move that negative 2 to the right. It doesn't matter in which order you move them. Okay, so I'm going to start by adding 2. I'm going to move the constant to the right. So now I have y equals negative 4x plus 12 plus 2 is 14. So step 2, move constant right. And now you see where we're at is where we started on the ones up above. We're now in slope-intercept form. So to put it in standard, now just move the x to the left. So plus 4x. You got 4x plus y equals 14. Unfortunately, this one has a positive x term up front, and it's not a fraction, so you are done at that point. So step 3 was move x left. It will always be those same 3 steps to go from point slope to standard. Okay, so the next one, same thing. I'm going to show you how if you want to do those last 2 steps together, you can. So still start the same way. Distribute. So you got y plus 1 equals 5x minus 5. Okay, so now we know that we're wanting to move that x to this side, and we're wanting to move this 1 to that side, correct? So you can do both those at the same time. We can subtract 1, and we can subtract 5x. It basically does step 2 and step 3 together. So now we have negative 5x plus y equals negative 5 and negative 1 combined to be negative 6. Okay, so if you prefer to do it each step separately, that is perfectly fine. If you want to do them together like that, that works also. Okay, last on that one, the standard form always checks the signs. Do we need to change this one? Yes. So it's going to become 5x minus y equals 6. Good there? All right, turn page. We'll look at one more of those where you got the fraction. So we'll do this one. So we're going to distribute. So y minus 3 equals negative 1/2 x. And then negative 1/2 times 12 would be negative 6. Okay, I'll do the steps back individually again like we did the first time. So I'm going to add 3, move the constant right. Y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3. Negative 6 plus 3 gives us negative 3. And then move your x to the left. So I'm going to add 1/2 x. And we end up with 1/2 x plus y equals negative 3. Okay, so we got the fraction in front. If you wanted to be done there, that's fine. But what would I multiply that by if I wanted to get rid of the fraction? Well, we don't need to use a negative because it's already positive here. So just 2, right? So 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that becomes 1x, and then 2 times y, 2y, and 2 times negative 3 will give you negative 6. So there it would be with the fraction gotten rid of. Okay, so we got any questions with taking point slope form and putting it into standard? Alright, so now we're going to start with a line. So the first thing we need to do, just like with point slope form, you're thinking the exact same way, because I can't take a line and write it directly into standard. I have to start either with point slope or slope intercept. Either one would work. This one, since you can see the y-intercept, I would start with y-intercept. Saves you a little work putting it in standard. If you can't see the y-intercept, meaning like let's say we had a line that crossed not perfectly at one of the intersections there, like that, then you would need to start in point slope form. Okay, but this one, since we can see the y-intercept, we will use that. So what is the y-intercept of that line? 4. And then our slope, is this a positive or negative slope? Negative, and we're going down 3, right 1. So slope of negative 3. So we got a slope, we got a y-intercept, we can now write it in slope-intercept form. So we'd have y equals negative 3x plus 4. And then from there, last step to put it in standard, move that x over. So add 3x. So you end up with 3x plus y equals 4. So there is it written in standard form. Okay, just to show you that you would get the same answer if you start in point slope form, that's what this is talking about down here. You could also start in point slope form, and it's suggesting to use point 3, negative 5. But you can use any point, but we'll use that one. So if I wrote it in point slope form first, I would have y plus 5 equals slope of negative 3, and then x minus 3. And then you'd go through those same steps we did in that last group where you're going from point slope to standard. We would distribute. So that gives you negative 3x plus 9. Negative 3 times negative 3. And then we move the constant right, so minus 5. So 9 minus 5 gives us 4. And then last, you'd move the x to the left. Plus 3x. And you end up with 3x plus y equals 4. And you'll notice that is the exact same thing we got up there. Okay, but see how it was a little more work than starting in slope-intercept form. Okay, so if you can start in slope-intercept form, I would do that. It really saves you one step because it's already got all the constants on the right. All right, turn page. And this is probably, out of any of them, the most work you could ever have on one of these. It's the same thing, but we don't know the slope yet. So going back to where we started at the very beginning of finding a slope first between 2 points. So here's x1, y1, x2, y2. So step 1 is find the slope. So y2 minus y1 is negative 3 minus negative 1. And then x2 minus x1 is 2 minus 3. So up in that numerator, what does minus and negative become? Positive. So negative 3 plus 1 should give you negative 2. And 2 minus 3, negative 1. And a negative divided by negative is a positive. So now we have the slope, 2. Okay, step 2, write it in point slope form. We don't have the option here of writing it in slope intercept because we don't know the y-intercept. We just know 2 points. Either point will work. Okay, I'm going to use the point 3, negative 1. So I'd have y plus 1 equals our slope of 2, and then x minus 3. Okay, so step 2 is done. It's in point slope, and now follow those steps to go from point slope to standard, which were first distribute. So that gives you 2x minus 6. And then I'm going to do those last 2 steps together on this one. I'm going to move 1 to the right, so minus 1. I'm going to move 2x to the left, so minus 2x. And now we have negative 2x plus y equals negative 6 and negative 1 combined to be negative 7. And for that answer, are the signs good, or do we need to change it? Change it. So change it to positive 2x minus y equals positive 7. All right, last part is just vertical and horizontal lines, kind of like what we reviewed in the warm-up. And I've had this way for like 4 years, and I keep forgetting to go back and change it every year. I label them as blue and red, and then they're printed in black and white. So let's change this to line 1 and line 2. So let's call this line 1, line 2. Doesn't really do you good to call it a color if you're not looking at a color print, right? All right, so for a vertical line, say line 1 here, is that going to be x equals or y equals? X equals. Ask yourself, what axis is it going through? It's going through the x-axis. So it's going to be x equals 3. And then for the second line, it's going through the y-axis. That is at y equals negative 4. Now technically, those are in standard form. If I were to, so there's no y there, I could really write that as x plus 0y equals 3. So even though there's only an x or only a y, that is still standard form. Okay, now it says, what point do both lines go through? Well, that's this point, right? So that is at the point 3, negative 4. Okay, see anything in common up here? Okay, so if I give you a point, any point, and I say, what is the vertical line that goes through this point? The vertical would be x equals 3. And then if I ask you, what is the horizontal line through that point? It'd be y equals negative 4. So if you can just remember x is the vertical, y is the horizontal, you can just write it straight from the point. All right, any questions there? Okay, if you flip it to this side, I'm going to have you just do one of each of these. So do A on both the first and second one, and then for the bottom, I'll label it as A. So basically do all the A's. The right side, you can skip for now.